Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Green Lanterns Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Will Smith of Sector 2814. And on today's episode, it is titled properly, and that is Jeremy Adams Brings Me to Tears with Green Lantern 29 through 32. It is not just an emotional arc that he has written for multiple characters, but I think that there is levels to the writing that maybe not everybody is seeing, or maybe you just don't enjoy it and it's not your thing. But let's go ahead and get into and show you what I mean by tears. In Green Lantern 29, Hal Jordan goes on a one-on-one adventure with Oliver Queen, Green Arrow, a buddy cop team up, just like we are used to seeing with them, some hard traveling heroes type stuff. They meet up, they go to a bar, and Hal finally gets off his chest emotionally that he has something wrong with him, that his name appeared in the Book of Oa, and since he's touched it, he's been having all sorts of weird visions or memories. He can't really tell what they are. After having this moment, they get into a little, bar crawl fight with them and a bunch of other guys that had no chance against them, and we get to have some fun in the issue, and then a robot shows up, and they're able to double team, beat the robot with an awesome arrow construct that they made, also tricking the robot. But it all works out as it should. By the end of the issue, you have Hal and Oliver talking, and it's like, okay, now that you've gotten this off of your chest, what's the next step? And again, there's nothing else that happens in the issue. It is strictly an Oliver Queen, Hal Jordan story, and that is it. We don't know what's going on with Kyle and the rest behind the scenes. And as you can see here on the screen, Oliver does ask him, so what's next? And he says, I don't know. He needs to find some way to piece together the mystery of what is going on in his head. They have a little laugh, and he's like, hey, help is help. I know you don't love him, and I know you hate Gotham, but finding Batman is probably the next move. I got you to open up. He can probably run some tests on you. And so we leave here with two legendary heroes having a good time, acknowledge each other, and they get to say their piece, and then we move on to the next chapter of the story. When Hal gets to Gotham and he's waiting on Batman, Batman's able to kind of sneak up behind him and scare him a little bit. And they have these fun moments where it's difficult for Hal to talk to Batman, to the point where Hal starts talking too much, and Batman sort of has to call him on it. He knows he's here to run some tests. Hal wants to work with Batman, one, because he respects him, and two, because he knows that if anybody will be honest with him, whether it's diagnosing him or just running tests or giving him advice and feedback, it is Bruce Wayne, Batman, will 100% be open and honest with Hal Jordan. As the comic issue itself goes on, they get into this spot where this child is able to make like these visions come true, attack the heroes, and they have to figure, how to stop this little boy who seems to have these crazy powers. Long story short, by the end of the issue, when things could have gone wrong a million different ways, or maybe Batman talking to the kid wouldn't be ideal, it's Hal who steps in, gives words of encouragement, and Batman takes notice of this. And again, Batman is somebody that Hal definitely looks up to. And that's what I have up on the screen here, is one of the pages where he says, you were good with the boy. And Hal's like, was that a compliment? And he said, it's an observation. Batman continues and he says, you came here for an honest assessment, Hal. You wanted truth from someone you think doesn't care about you. But I do care. I've always cared. We both lost our fathers when we were close to that boy's age. And I know it changed you, me, and what you did. Maybe that makes the trauma of being young a little less, and Hal jumps in and says scary. We go back to Batman, who says, for a long time I wondered if your bravado and willingness to run into danger were because you were fearless, or because you think the worst thing that could possibly happen is you just end up reuniting with your dad. But that's not it, is it? You and I are a lot more alike than I care to admit. You want to keep the world and its kids from having to see and go through what you did, just like me. And if you thought that was going to be like the high of their dialogue back and forth in recognition towards Hal, it's not. On the next page, he says, the message this Book of Oa implanted in your brain wants to come out. But I think somewhere deep inside you, you're a little afraid of what it might say. I think you shouldn't be. Because Hal, you are cocky and brash and leap before you look, but that's saved the world and the universe more times than I can count. Whatever this is, you'll figure it out, like you do with that kid back there. I would tell you to be careful, but that's not your style. I'll only say, come back to us, because this planet needs one of its greatest heroes. And as he disappears, that's when Hal says, I sure hope he was talking about me. And again, so we had like the buddy cop team up in the first issue 29. We have another one that is completely different in style in 30. And Hal's able to get some diagnostics run on him and, some advice from Batman. Don't run from this thing, do what you have to do to face it. And it feels like Hal has finally got open appreciation from Batman, which longtime readers, those two have sort of always butt heads, just like Batman does with a lot of other heroes. But it seems outside of Guy Gardner, it happens especially a lot with Hal Jordan. So again, he had a buddy and now somebody that he admired and wanted to sort of be friends with. They're much closer on that level now, and they much more see eye to eye, where maybe Hal himself didn't always feel he was on the same level as Batman. I think he recognizes he is there now. When we get to the next issue, it is the third one in a row that is a one-on-one. It is Hal Jordan and another hero. And in this one, it's Barry Allen, who you guys all know as the Flash. Hal shows up, and Barry, for whatever reason, is currently without powers, and he needs to get to a safe house and a courthouse in order to help put a mobster, so to speak, away in prison for some time. Obviously, Hal shows up and he's willing to help him with this. And in exchange, a lot of the tests that Batman had done, it was going to be Barry Allen who looks at the results of those things because, he's a scientist, science-based guy. I'm sure many of you know that, even if you don't read the comics, but you did watch the show. And because of that, he's there to tell him that basically, we still don't 100% know what this is, but it does remind me a little bit of the Speed Force. And similar to what Batman is saying, when these things come up, don't run away from them anymore. Go attack them. When the visions want to come through, let them through, see where it takes you. Al's able to hold off a pretty dope villain that is able to kind of hold his own against Hal during the issue, even though Hal's goal wasn't really to beat him up too bad and put him away himself. The moment the mob boss was convicted and found guilty and he was going to spend 40 years in prison, but maybe 20 with parole, they both agreed, Hal and the villain, to just kind of drop the fight and stop there because they have no need to fight anymore. Hal was there just basically to hold him off long enough so Barry could get there. And Hal did this awesome thing where he created this construct of the Flash suits to go around Barry and push him forward so that he can sort of use his super speed in a way to get to the courthouse on time. And just like Oliver Queen, this is somebody like Hal and Barry have a long time relationship across multiple formats. And it's another one of those legendary friendships. And people love to see them pop up on the screen. And Hal didn't need to earn any recognition or get anything really off his chest when it comes to this one. It's more of just getting that final nudge to hear from another friend. This is what you need to do. So you've opened up, you got test results run. You got your test results back, and here is the advice we are giving you that this is what you now need to do. And he knows this. And they are going to move forward into the next issue, which is GL32. And in that one, he is going to meet up with longtime love, but very rarely ever seals the deal, with Carol Ferris. Now, here we are about to get our fourth consecutive issue where it is more or less Hal and one other person. And this time it is seeing Hal in another light, 4 different issues, 4 different versions of Hal. This one is the guy who he wants so badly to have a perfect date with Carol and propose to her and marry her and be together for forever that he is so nervous. He even has to tell himself in this issue that he has to remind himself, you have the ability to overcome great fear. And it seems like everything is kind of going great until another character shows up, throws a wrench into the plans. And some people would have predicted and seen from a mile away that Hal's proposal to Carol was never going to fully go through. But I think the way that Jeremy wrote it was beautiful. Sure, we didn't get to that end that we wanted, but when Carol looks and she sees the ring laying on the ground and she now all of a sudden realizes what Hal was doing during this date night, she is infuriated at this other character and doesn't just say, like, you ruined the proposal. She looks at the other character enraged and says, did you ruin my proposal? Like, she was excited. She very clearly would have told Hal yes. And then they would have been engaged to be married at a later point. And again, it's just like we keep getting these different layers of Hal in this Jeremy Adams Green Lantern run. And I think that anybody who can write 4 consecutive issues and make it very tight where it's one-on-ones, yet they all feel different on their own. Each story is written that it's an entertaining and engaging story, and you want to read what the next one is, but they also go together completely. And then at the end of this issue, we have this beautiful moment between Hal Jordan and Kyle Rayner that sort of ties it all together for me. When Hal is going to leave Star Sapphire and they agree, hey, we can do this again and we can get married in the future when we can find another time to have a date where you're not so busy and I'm not so busy and we can do this thing the right way. So they leave on a tremendously great note. Everything is looking up for them. And she asks him, so where are you going next? And again, Hal is still getting ready to face the Book of Oa and the visions and all that he had been seeing, but he has one more stop he has to do. He tells Kyle Rayner that they need to go meet out on the moon. So Kyle's just sitting around waiting for Hal to show up. As a baseball fan, I was immediately pulled to the page that you see on the screen right here. Kyle's perfectly set up to absolutely hit a bomb. His batting stance is great. The catcher looks cool. Umpire looks cool. Kyle basically makes constructs of all the other players on the field, and he's making a baseball game. The pitch comes in, he hits it, it's a dinger. And again, he did this beautiful, like, childlike thing that we all do when we're younger, which is when you play baseball and you're at home and nobody's around, you walk yourself through these scenarios. Okay, bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, bases loaded. I have to get a grand slam here or we lose. But if I can hit the grand slam, we win the World Series, game over. Well, as he hits the dinger, he looks up and he's embarrassed because he sees somebody that he looks up to, Hal, up in the sky, not sky, up in the atmosphere, whatever you want to call it. He's in space. He looks up and he sees him there and he's like, oh, shoot, like, how embarrassing. How long have you been there? And Hal's like, ever since, like, bottom of the ninth is where when I showed up. And Hal can tell that Kyle is embarrassed and he's like, hey, dude, don't sweat it. I've been caught doing way worse things than imagining myself, hitting a home run. Don't worry about it at all. And this is the moment where, for me, I start to get a little bit teary-eyed and a little much because Kyle is my guy. I love Kyle more than any other character in comic book history. He's my Green Lantern. He's my favorite hero, period. So we switch from the two of them joking, having a good time, to all of a sudden this very serious moment where Kyle asks Hal, so why are we meeting on the moon? We could have went somewhere else. Like, there's a whole wing, a Green Lantern wing, if we would have just went to the Watchtower. And without telling Kyle about the whole backstory of the Book of Oa, he says, a dream, a vision tells me that this spot on the moon is where this thing will happen. And they look forward, and you just see this awesome shot of the two of them standing on the moon looking forward, and they're looking at Earth. And Hal says, she's gorgeous, isn't she? And Kyle acknowledges, and he's like, yeah, absolutely she is. And then Hal says the thing that tore me up a little bit and made me feel like so good for Kyle. He said, when Batman got a sidekick, I thought it was about the most irresponsible thing a man could do, putting someone so young in harm's way. And then Ollie did it. Then Barry. Hal says to Kyle, if I ever were to have a sidekick, I hope he'd be like you. You were still the best of us, Kyle. Torchbearer. And Kyle's like, what is going on? And before providing any answers to Kyle, Hal says, basically, I gotta go. I gotta do this thing over here, but could you do me a favor? And again, another beautifully written quote. He looks back at the Earth and he says, take care of her. She means the universe to me. This one planet to me means the universe. And Kyle's like, yeah, like, sure, but what's going on? And that's when Hal gets zapped to go off to wherever he's going to go. And I just think that I appreciated each issue that Jeremy wrote for what it was, one by one as a standalone issue, but also issues that was like they were going to lead us to an end of an arc. What I didn't appreciate the way I should have is the tears to the writing. I don't mean tears coming out of my eyes, although these moments were emotional. I mean like the tears to the writing itself. Again, basically four issues where it's one-on-one stuff, and Jeremy has written them each to be different from the last one. The tier of still being able to continue to tell a coherent story that is worth these additional issues. Getting to the end and being able to hand off being the Green Lantern of Earth to Kyle while he goes and works on himself feels like Kyle has earned this moment, especially with the words that he has said to them. When he mentions that if I would have had a sidekick, when you now look back at that first issue, GL 29, and he meets up with Oliver Queen, Green Arrow has had many sidekicks. There's a whole Arrow fam of sidekicks, more or less. Then he moved on to Batman, and everybody knows Batman has had some sidekicks. How many Robins, a Batgirl, a Batwoman, you name it. Like, Batman has tried it. He's the king of sidekicks. Then even getting to Barry Allen, like how many side Flash characters are. Some of them become main characters, but a lot of them start out as sidekicks to him. Yet for Green Lanterns, they never really do this. You go through your training, usually with like Kilowog, and then you either own a sector yourself or you're partnered up with like one other Green Lantern to cover that sector, but you don't have a true sidekick. Like, you're considered equals. So Hal's out here meeting with all these people who have had sidekicks and then recognize that he himself has never had one. And maybe it's because he has felt like it's a selfish thing, or it's because that's just not the way that Green Lanterns typically operate. But him finally getting approval from Batman, and then he gives his approval to Kyle, telling him, "You've always been the best of us." There's not a higher compliment somebody can give somebody else. It's like if you've got a coach in a sport who doesn't have kids himself, and he tells your parents that if he did have a kid, he would hope it was like you because of how respectful you are and you do things the right way and you play hard and you don't talk back. And like, it's such a high compliment. Really, you can't even give it like a bar level to go, well, this would be a better compliment. It's at the top with everything else. And this also sets up Kyle to have a bigger role going forward as he has earned it. A lot of us have been waiting a long time for Kyle to step in and become the main Green Lantern or just have a larger role. The way Jeremy has spent the last handful of months writing these issues back to back to back, yet still making them feel different. And then as you get to the end, it's not like we're trying to go back and appreciate previous runs that have happened and look at Easter eggs. We're getting callbacks to just a couple issues ago. And I just think that not enough people appreciate these moments that you get, as a comic book fan in the moment. It'll be like 10 years from now when somebody else is writing Green Lantern that you don't like. They'll be like, man, looking back, Jeremy had some of these arcs really, really well written. And I just want to give him his roses now for this because to me, I am reading other comics now that aren't just Green Lantern only, but nobody's writing a story currently outside of some of the absolute stories that makes me feel on an emotional level how these issues have made me feel. I think that he's knocked it out of the park. It'll be hard to keep this level of writing going, especially now that we're kind of getting a reset and letting Kyle be the main guy. I'm very interested to see what happens in the next issue to Hal and the direction he's going, figure out where Carol's going. But I know at this point, through 30 some odd issues of Green Lantern under Jeremy Adams, I am excited and I trust him to take me to a place that is going to continue to make me feel things when I read a comic book. And ultimately, that's the best thing that I could have happen to me. Like, I can't ask for more when I open up some pages to like have an actual feeling. And I'm not just reading a book to read it start to finish and say, well, I read Green Lantern 64 just to read it. I want to read it because I'm loving it. And that is currently what is happening in this run. I appreciate you, Jeremy. Keep it going. And, we really hope you take care of my boy Kyle. That's it for me. Let me know what you guys think. Did you notice as this was happening that, Hal wasn't just getting advice and getting diagnosed and getting results, but that he was also meeting up with people in his past who had sidekicks before he talked to Kyle? Or was it one of those moments that we had on like Lanterns Live where we're reading the issue, we're going to break it down, and then we're like, oh my God, this was another issue like those previous issues and the whole sidekick aspect to it, and it was just like this beautiful epiphany, and we just had a lot of fun being able to talk about it. It's a lot of fun just talking about comics that I really, really like. I know they're not for everybody, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.